I want to go a little bit deeper into this idea of dealing with our anxieties and our desires through mindfulness. Anxiety and desires are very interrelated. They both have to do with our neurology. They both have to do with the ways that our ancestors evolved, and to understand them and to understand how to cope with them is really important, because both of them make us really unhappy. And this isn't news. The Buddha said 2,000 years ago that life is suffering, and suffering is caused by desire. Now, that's a little bit of a mistranslation. He was life is tanha, and tanha is created by dukkha. Tanha means like conflict, or resistance, struggle. And dukkha is misplaced desires, which means really wanting the wrong things. So anyway, we'll get into it. Um, I want you to think about hurricanes. If you've been in a hurricane, you might know where I'm going with this, that hurricanes are frightening. Hurricanes are loud. Hurricanes are chaotic. They stir up things. They destroy things. But in the middle of it, of course, is the eye. Now, I don't want to get too cliche with you about this, but I want you to imagine this, that the eye of the hurricane, where it is intensely calm, coexists with the chaos that's around it. I think that you and I can see that we are in a world that is chaotic, that our lives become chaotic, that our conditions become chaotic. But somewhere in there, coexisting, is that center, is that calm. This is why centering ourselves becomes so important. You can become the calm. You can find that spot, because it is there regardless of how chaotic and awful things get. And once you get to that calm point, it doesn't make your problems go away, but it makes the problem of your problems go away. So, one method that I try to use to find that calm center is look at your feet. Now, obviously, if you've been meditating in a while and you're used to this idea of focusing on your breath, you can focus on your breath when you get a little irritated, a little upset. It's something that I tend to do maybe in the car if other people are driving aggressively and I'm running late, is I take a couple breaths. But looking at your feet is a really handy way to tell where and when you can do anything. Your feet tell you where you are. Your feet tell you when you are. And this can address what you can affect at that time. If you're lying in bed at 3 a.m. and you can't sleep because you're anxious, because there's problems that you have to deal with, look at your feet. Where are they? They're in bed at 3 a.m. That's where they should be. You're not expected to be doing anything at 3 a.m. There is not a certain amount of worry to get out of the way. You just have to be asleep. And obviously, like grasping this doesn't make you instantly fall asleep, but you can remind yourself that there's nothing you need to be doing in the middle of the night. You're worried about losing your job. Where are your feet? Well, or if they're in the car and you're driving to work, it's the best that you can be doing. Until that storm hits, there's nothing to worry about. You don't need to worry about the worst case scenario coming. That's fortune telling. You're not a fortune teller. The world is actually unknowable, and science has told us this. You cannot guess what's going to happen. So look at your feet and let this remind you that you are here, you are now. This is what you can deal with. And hopefully that will be a grounding experience for you and something that you can hold on to long after you've watched this video. Now, desires are like anxieties because they're there and they swim around and they needle at you and they bother at you and they make you discontent. They're actually very interrelated, but your desires, unlike being just abstract thoughts and predictions, are your senses pulling out at things that they want. And we are made to be desirous creatures. We are made to not be content. It is not in our biology to be content. If it were, then the first time you craved a donut and had a donut, you'd never eat another donut. The species wouldn't get along very far if the first time it was hungry, the first time it wanted to have sex, and that was enough for it. So we're made to desire and then want more. Now, the problem is that we tend to want things that have already happened. We tend to want something to recreate an experience, to recreate excitement, to recreate pleasure. And that's not possible. So you have to remind your brain of this. You have to remind it. And you have to remind it that it is experiencing something that's not real in the sense of danger and in the sense of the imminent starvation or anything like that. With anxieties and desires, you have to remember that these things are abstract and that they're built far back into our DNA and that you have to outsmart it. You have to be able to do this. And my best piece of advice is not to engage it. When you feel that you're really desiring something that is going to set you back from your goals, that's causing you problems, that's making you spend your money, whatever it is, that you try not to engage it. Don't fight it. Don't use willpower. Willpower is not a thing. It would be nice if it were, but these things, our desires and our anxieties, they are not logical. They are not reasonable. You cannot reason them out, so don't try. Instead of fighting them, watch them. And this is again where your mindfulness training comes in really handy. You watch the desire come, you think about it, and eventually it will pass through. Everything does. Let it pass through you. Don't fight it, because you don't have the ability to fight something that's not there. You end up just creating more of it. So, again, if you can watch these things pass through, you can watch them go, then it's time to cultivate other feelings to take their places. Our feelings arise and they are not us. Our feelings may be real, but they are not necessarily true. So I want you to instead try to engage feelings that give you better sense of peace, of serenity, of calm. Again, gratitude, satisfaction, and when all else fails, engagement. Try and think about something outside yourself that you can be involved with. Someone who needs help, some sort of organization that needs volunteers. The quickest way to happiness from discontent is to do something for somebody else. And that's not me. That's not the Buddha. Maybe it is, but it is actual science has shown us this. So engagement with other things, with things outside of yourself that don't address your problems, but address somebody else's problems, is the quickest shortcut to feeling content. Despite the fact that it may not be exactly what you feel like you want at that time. So, dealing with anxieties and desires doesn't stop. It doesn't go away. You're saddled with this for the rest of your life. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep pushing through, and eventually it does get easier, despite the fact that our biology doesn't let go.